Tonight, as the clock tower in Venice strikes 12 chimes, piercing the fog-shrouded canals like a dagger through velvet, I will unveil a secret guarded for centuries by emperors, the cunning Medici bankers, and the shadowy architects of empires who shaped the world not with swords, but with whispers and glances. This secret lies not in vaults of gold or thrones of iron. It does not dwell in the clamor of parliaments or the roar of battlefields. No, it resides in the exquisite, forbidden art of making a woman obsessed with you so profoundly that she chooses you not as a rational decision, but as an instinct woven into her very pulse. Not through logic's cold chains, but through the raw fire of blood, through the rhythm of breath caught in anticipation, through dreams that haunt her waking hours, uncoiling like smoke she cannot grasp or dispel. And you, my listener in the shadows, will master this art without uttering a single vow of love, without the clumsy bridge of touch, only through your presence a force as inevitable as gravity. Your gaze, sharp as a Florentine stiletto. Your silence, heavy with unspoken dominion. Picture it now. You stride into a grand salon, crystal chandeliers casting fractured light like shattered stars. The room's very atmosphere alters in your wake, a subtle shift like the tide turning before a storm. Every eye, veiled or bold, drifts toward you, drawn by an invisible thread, not because of honeyed words spilling from your lips, not because of ostentatious displays of wealth or wit, but because of who you are, a wolf cloaked in the finest lamb's wool, an emperor veiled in the subtle armor of a tailored suit, commanding without command, and she, perhaps laughing lightly with another suitor, her voice a melody in the candlelit haze feels it first, a shiver, unbidden, like electricity tracing the curve of her spine. Your presence lingers in her periphery, a shadow that warms and chills in equal measure, pulling at the edges of her composure until she turns, unresisting, to seek its source. That, dear apprentice of the dark arts, is true power, the kind that bends wills without breaking them. Not the vulgar power of coin or crown, fleeting as autumn leaves, but the profound sovereignty of mind over mind, of emotion as empire, of primal instinct awakened and harnessed, and tonight I will forge that power within you, layer by inexorable layer, move by calculated move. As Niccolo Machiavelli schooled the princes of Renaissance Florence in times the Prince Asterisk, turning boys into tyrants who ruled with a smile and a blade concealed. As Lucrezia Borgia's whispered alliances ensnared the Vatican itself, weaving popes and cardinals into webs of desire and dread. As Charles Maurice de Talleyrand, that silver-tongued survivor, danced through the guillotines of revolution and the cannons of Napoleon, emerging unscathed by betraying no one yet all, you will come to see, as they did, that in the theater of love, of lust, of a woman's fateful choice, nothing is left to chance. Every glance is a gambit, every pause a ploy. It is all a grand chessboard, and you will be the grandmaster, moving pieces with the elegance of a sonnet, the ruthlessness of a coup. But pause here. Before we descend into the labyrinth, grasp this foundational truth, etched in the annals of human frailty. A woman does not select the finest man, the one polished by virtue or adorned by virtue signaling. She yields to the man who ignites the most within her, the one who stirs tempests in her soul, leaving her breathless, yearning, alive in ways she never dared imagine. And emotion? Ah, it is the master key to that tempest. The deadliest weapon, sharper than any stiletto, forged in the fires of the subconscious. The eternal flame you will kindle in the recesses of her mind, watching it spread until it consumes all rivals in its glow. I will illuminate the path for you without the saccharine declarations of, "I love you," those chains that bind the weak. Without hollow promises, those echoes in empty halls. Only through unyielding presence, through masterful control, through the alchemical art of scarcity that transmutes absence into addiction. Heed this. In the Machiavellian realm, where shadows hold court, scarcity begets supreme value. You will become the rarest artifact in her world, not a common coin to be spent, but a relic glimpsed once in a lifetime, coveted beyond reason, not by clinging eternally at her side, like some desperate supplicant, but by embodying the specter of departure, the man who could vanish at dawn's first light, leaving only echoes and an ache that demands your return. And that vanishing? It will forge her obsession, a relentless forge where she hammers at the mystery of you, searching in vain until she chooses you not as option, but as destiny's decree, an instinct as old as the hunt. Like the she-wolf yielding to the alpha's shadow in the moonlit wood, drawn not by force, but by the primal pull of survival and supremacy. And now, with the hourglass turning, we descend into the first circle, the mask. The mask is no vulgar deceit, no clown's painted farce for the gullible masses. It is armor of the soul, shield of the strategist, the veil that reveals just enough to ensnare. It is how you curate your most intoxicating incarnation, not the saintly effigy morality demands, but the enigma that hooks her gaze, reels her in like a siren's call from the fog. You will construct this mask with the precision of a goldsmith, layer upon deliberate layer, each one a thread in the tapestry of her fascination. The foundational layer, mystery, that velvet curtain drawn just so, teasing the light without fully unveiling the stage. You never lay bare your entirety, like some fumbling fool spilling confessions at dawn. You withhold that one shadowed facet, a puzzle piece forever just beyond reach, igniting her curiosity like embers fanned to flame. It compels her to probe, to pursue, to peel back the layers in a dance of discovery that is, in truth, your design from the outset. Each time she believes she has mapped your contours, discerned your core, you metamorphose. You evaporate into ether. You resurface, reborn in a guise subtly altered, perhaps a sharper edge to your wit, a deeper shadow in your smile, leaving her chart obsolete, her quest renewed. And thus she tumbles into the labyrinthine game of deciphering you, a voluntary prisoner to the riddle you embody. She becomes haunted by the hunt, replaying encounters in the quiet hours, dissecting silences for clues. That is your first conquest, her mind, bent to your enigma. But that conquest is but the prelude to peril, for once she is ensnared in the riddle's grip. You advance to the second circle, emotional leverage, where hearts are harps, strung taut for your playing. Emotion reigns as the paramount arsenal, eclipsing the crude might of fortunes or fiefdoms. It outstrips the scepter's sway. For emotion is the realm she cannot govern, a wild river rushing through her veins, yours to dam or divert at will. You will master the crafting of emotional architectures, soaring cathedrals of ecstasy and chasms of quiet despair, each a stroke in your masterpiece of dependency. Moments where she soars on wings of euphoria, your words or touch, a zephyr lifting her to rarefied heights. And moments where she plummets into the void of doubt, your absence a sudden eclipse, the sun stolen from her sky. It is precisely that plummet, the exquisite sting of uncertainty that welds her to you, forging chains stronger than iron vows. She clings in the descent, desperate for the anchor of your return. She craves the elevation only you can grant. She selects you by sheer instinct, a moth to your flame, oblivious to the burn. Like the opium devotee, hollow-eyed and hollow-souled, awaiting the next vein's kiss of oblivion. And you? You embody that elixir, not the vulgar draught poured freely at every tavern, but a vintage rare and rationed, uncorked solely at your whim, in sips measured to heighten the thirst. She will internalize the discipline of anticipation, her days of vigil for your shadow. She will cultivate a garden of longing, each unmet glance a thorn that draws her deeper. Thus, her mind becomes your dominion, a territory mapped and claimed without a single banner raised. But dominion's dawn is merely the shadow of greater storms, for when craving has carved its grooves in her soul, you traverse to the third circle, silence as weapon, where words are daggers withheld, and quietude cuts deepest. Silence is no mere void, no empty interlude for the timid. Silence is the most commanding presence, a throne room where echoes reign and anticipation kneels. You will wield it as the sculptor's chisel to shape the space around you, to stretch time like taffy, to orchestrate the symphony of her unease. When she unspools her thoughts, a cascade of confessions. You absorb, a black hole devouring light, reflecting nothing back but the mirror of her own vulnerability. When she pauses, expectant, fishing for your bait, you abide in silence, letting the pause swell like a storm cloud, heavy with the weight of unspoken judgments. And in that burgeoning quiet, she will unburden more words tumbling forth like prisoners from a breached gate. She will unveil layers she swore to secrecy, secrets slipping free in the vacuum you create. She will invest exponentially, her every syllable a stake in the game, her every hesitation a bid for your approval. Yet, in Machiavellian calculus, the greater the investment, the greater the enslavement. She pours forth emotion's tribute, time's coinage, mind's archives. You, the sovereign, collect without expenditure, your coffers brimming while hers run dry. Not as a beggar at the gate, but as the collector supreme, tallying tolls with the precision of a Renaissance ledger. That is the tide turning irrevocably in your favor. But tides conceal currents far more treacherous. For when her investments have mortgaged her freedom, you glide into the fourth circle, the betrayal play, where loyalty is a leash you fashion from feigned indifference. Betrayal, in the lexicon of the enlightened, is no crass perfidy, no thief's crude sleight. Betrayal is the finest filigree of control, a subtle incision that bleeds dependence without scarring the surface. It is the lesson you impart. You are no one's possession, a comet streaking free of orbits, unbound by gravity's grasp. You are the unbound spirit, a phantom who could dissolve into mist at whim. You embody the specter of departure, ever on the horizon, a ship with sails trimmed for distant shores. And that spectral threat? It propels her in relentless pursuit, her steps quickening to bridge the gulf you artfully widen. It compels her to affirm your worth in frantic gestures, choices born of fear-laced fervor. It etches obsession into her marrow, a tattoo inked by absence's quill. You will execute this betrayal, sans falsehood's taint no web of lies to untangle later. Merely through deeds deliberate and sparse, through absences engineered as art, through selections that prioritize your solitude over her supplication. In this forge, you emerge not as consort, but as Colossus, an emperor whose court she begs to enter. But empires teeter on fault lines unseen, for when her chase has worn paths in her pride, you ascend to the fifth circle, Law 48, the Edict of Unassailable Facade. Law 48, as decreed by Robert Greene in his Grimoire of Power. Assume the semblance of unyielding success, a mantle that repels doubt like oil on water. You will embody this law not as mimicry, but as second nature's breath. You will curate perceptions, so she beholds you as the archetype all aspire to emulate, the man whose shadow lengthens ambition in lesser souls. You will instill in her a pride bordering on reverence, her arm linked to yours, a badge of elite conquest. You will evoke in her the thrill of lottery's win, gratitude for being deemed worthy of your fleeting favor. Thus, your dominion extends beyond the frontiers of her thoughts. It colonizes the gallery of her self-image, where you hang as masterpiece eternal. And at last, as the circles converge, you breach the sixth circle, real-world application, where theory transmutes to tangible throne. Here, in the crucible of the everyday, you will alchemize these arcane principles into lived sorcery. In the digital missives that bridge modern chasms, a text dispatched not in haste, but in calibrated delay, each word a hook baited with implication. In encounters engineered as eclipses, brief, blinding, leaving afterimages that linger through lonely nights. In glances that linger one heartbeat too long, a Morse code of mastery spelling desire in her irises. In silences that stretch like cathedrals, vast enough to echo her unspoken pleas back at her, amplified. And, inexorably, she will elect you as sovereign, not for your ledger's balance or your halo's gleam, but because you orchestrate symphonies in her sentiments, conductor of crescendos she never knew her heart could hold. That, shadowed seeker, is power incarnate, the scepter invisible, yet absolute. But you presume the chronicle concluded? Delusion's folly. Lurks the ultimate gambit, a stratagem veiled even from the vigilant. A maneuver anticipated by none, reserved for emperors forged in solitude's fire. And that stratagem unfolds thus. Bestow upon her the grand illusion of agency. Permit her to fancy herself the chooser, the puppeteer pulling your strings, in this exquisite sleight where her perceived command is your concealed crown. She will remain eternally enthralled, a satellite orbiting your unseen sun, convinced of her celestial path. Now, in this midnight confessional, inscribe one word below, wolf or sheep, for in this eternal game of thrones and shadows, only two archetypes endure, and in your marrow you have already pledged allegiance. Empires do not crumble to dust and fade. They pulse, eternal, in the chambers of the heart she unwittingly yields.